Hello and welcome to 101. I am Bright Nanakwesi Amenin. On this episode, we'll be talking about Ghana's economic problems and governance in general, and really honored to be joined in studio by former UN Governance Advisor, Senior Governance Advisor at the UN, Professor BAFFOUR AGYEMANG-DUAH. Stay with us, don't go anywhere. And thank you so much for staying with us here. Welcome back. Hello.
Hi.
Such an honor to have you join me in studio.
It's a pleasure for me.
Really glad to have you here. Let's start our conversation and take a look at governance in general. Let's begin with the tenure of the NPP. I mean, since the President Akufo-Addo was elected into power, from there till now, what has been your general assessment of governance and in general?
Well, it's a very interesting question. I didn't plan to come and assess a particular government, but since you have the question, I have to respond in a way. Certainly, the president assumed office with very high expectation on the part of the public. I think the expectations were very high because, during the Mahama era, there were all kinds of public accusations, popular discontent, I should say, with regard to governance, with regard to corruption, and all kinds of things. And as you know, in our kind of politics here, when you are in opposition, you tend to know all the good things.
Yeah.
But once you are in government, you tend to forget what you used to know when you were in opposition. So, not surprisingly, the NPP won and came into power. But I would say that the first few years were quite all right in terms of managing the economy. General governance indicators were quite strong. Even their ratings in terms of the economy were quite pretty acceptable by the world rating bodies and all. But truthfully, I think the pandemic is a big factor. And also the war in Ukraine. Even though some people dismiss these two interventions in global relations, the fact is that the effect of these two global phenomena are worldwide. I mean, Britain, there have been demonstrations, just yesterday, Argentina, some Asian countries, you can mention them. So in that respect, it's not just Ghana. It is true that these two global phenomena have had some impact on all countries of the world. But having said that, I will also say that prior to the breakout of the pandemic, there were strong indications that the government needed to ginger up to deal with the economy, because World Bank figures indicate some kind of gradual decline. Then, of course, the pandemic came to make it worse. And that's an indication that perhaps something was going wrong even prior to the outbreak of the pandemic. And now we are beginning to see some signs, but I think currently we are in a very, very slippery kind of situation, because all the indicators are pointing downwards. Inflation is spiraling. The currency certainly is galloping against the dollar. And therefore, I think things are not right. And if you have to rely on public sentiments, then I will say that there's an overwhelming public sentiment against what's going on. People are not very happy. People are dissatisfied with the way the government is managing the economy. And I'm not surprised by that. So I think the government will have to sit up and find some effective ways to really get things under control.
This brings us to a conversation about reshuffling. I mean, in the Fourth Republic, this is the first government who hasn't done reshuffling yet. It's a bit worrying. We've had some economists like the CDD comment that it has to happen. What do you stand on? The president says some of his appointees have done well, and the call for reshuffling really is not on the table.
I will agree that, frankly, in this republic, I haven't observed any overwhelming public outcry for reshuffle. It's very strange, because normally people will expect some changes, but this time around it seems like the public sentiments are quite strong. And that's, again, is an indication that there's a popular disenchantment about the performance of government. And therefore, if there were to be a reshuffle, perhaps that will bring in some freshness and people will begin to see something different, to give them some kind of hope. I think that's why the public outcry should be listened to carefully by the president. But as we said a few days ago, he indicated that he's quite satisfied with his appointees. But I think at the end of that comment, it's also clear that the door is not shut. I think perhaps the president is not too enthused by the fact that the NDC, the opposition party, is leading this kind of public call. So it's as if he did it, he will be directly responding to their call. But there's nothing wrong doing that, you know. But the fact is, it's not only the NDC that is calling for reshuffle.
Yeah, like I mentioned, CDD and Money, Africa and all that are calling for it. I have
said it many times on interviews and all. So it's a popular call. But again, in his own wisdom, I think he will do the right thing at the right time. But I think if he does it, it will help government, because it may bring some glimpse of hope that the new people may do better, they may turn things around, and that's a way of, again, building confidence in the government. So it's not a bad thing at all to reshuffle. And I think clearly also there are some ministers who may look tired. Some are not in the best of health. Some are not performing at all. Some you don't even hear of them for months. And all these are indications to the public that perhaps performance has not been at optimum, you know, when it comes to the high-level appointees. And that's why I think a lot of people are calling for a reshuffle. So I believe that at the right time, the president will do what is right by heeding to this popular call.
At the right time. And it makes me want to ask you, among all the ministries, which is doing well and which isn't doing well in your assessment?
Frankly, I haven't done any serious assessment, but interestingly, you know, among the many ministers the president appointed during his first term was a ministry for monitoring and evaluation. And even if that ministry is no longer in existence, I'm sure the office is retained somewhere. So in other words, I'm saying that the government must have its own way of monitoring and assessing the performance of its appointees. And maybe, if that is the case, then that office may be feeding the president with information about the performance level of the minister.
So you wanted to come back?
Well, no, I'm not saying that. I'm just trying to say that the president may be getting that information for him to make the judgment that he's satisfied with the performance of the appointee from such an office. But the popular perception amongst the public is that some ministers are not doing too well.
In your assessment, which of these ministers are not doing too well? We can talk of education, agriculture,
look,
finance and all that.
I'm not going to single out individuals, but you listen. If you put your ears on the ground and listen to public sentiments, certainly people are not happy about the Minister of Finance, especially because of the way the economy is going. It may not be his personal fault, but the fact is that people feel disappointed with the performance of the economy. So people mention the Minister of Finance. People mention the Minister of Health for all kinds of reasons. People mention even the Minister of Roads. All right? So then there are some ministers that we don't even remember because we don't know what they're doing. That's why I'm saying that if the president had an office that is effectively monitoring and evaluating the performance of his ministers, he should be in the position to determine which amongst them must be replaced. But there's one point I have to make. When the Minister for Gender and Children decided to abdicate her office, for months, almost a year, the president was unable to take her out until after Parliament had taken his own decision on the minister's membership of the institution, the Parliament. And that for me was a bad signal that when somebody was really being negligent, derelict, so to speak. The president was not able to take a decision. That surprised me very much, because I haven't seen anywhere in the world where a minister abdicates for whatever reason, despite public calls, parliamentary calls and all that, snubbing parliament in terms of not attending committee requests and all, and yet this person was able to hang on until after almost a year. That was not a good example of strong leadership, in my view.
How quick or within what time frame were you expecting the president to react?
There's no magic about the time frame. If you're a leader and one of your stalwarts, for whatever reason, is not behaving as the public expects, it's your job to make sure that place is not left vacant for as many months as we witness in this particular case. You have to act fast. Finally,
she's no more occupying that position as the gender minister, but she's still there as a member of parliament.
Of course, she was elected by her own people. No, the president cannot deal with that. That's in the purview of parliament. The president's job was with regard to her appointment by the president as a minister, and he's done that.
And there are calls for her position or her seat in parliament to be declared vacant. What do you make on that as well?
Well, that's up to parliament. They have their rules. They have a number of days or weeks that if you breach, you are penalized and all, you are sanctioned. So I think it's currently in the hands of the committee. They've dealt with it. It's now in the hands of the speaker. So we wait for what the speaker or the institution says. That is strictly in the hands of parliament.
The size of the Akufo-Addo-led government, do you think it should be capped?
Oh, this has been a recurrent issue, you know, when he appointed 120 ministers in the first term, you know, again, there was public outcry because that was the very, very first time that any president had appointed more than 100 ministers. And of course, he justified it by saying that he has a job to do. He
was in a hurry.
In a hurry, he needed people to do so. And the people said, okay, good. At the end of the first term, I think, again, he advised himself and realized that he needed to reduce, and he did. So even currently, some of us think it's still a big thing. But you know, all these things are because the Constitution gives a president that kind of leeway to make appointments as he or she wishes. So for people like us who are interested and are calling for constitutional review, we're talking about how we find a way to trim the excessive powers of a president. Because in my view, again, this constitution tends to create an imperial president. So much power concentrated at the center. And that is not. And so at times, presidents make decisions, not that they've committed any crime, they haven't infringed any rule or any constitutional provision. They're just doing their job because they are allowed by the law to do what they do. So if you want to constrain them, then what you do is to deal with the powers that are given by the Constitution to the president.
Let's not talk about inclusiveness. Now we've had former President John Dramani Mahama advise the president to involve the opposition when it comes to decision making and dialogue and all that. Even the Deputy Information Minister Felix Ofozukwachi has stated that we need a national dialogue or the economy might collapse. Where do you lie on this?
You know, this brings me back, I think way back during the 70s, mid 70s to late 70s, when a champion was talking about union government. It reminds me, the comment or the question you just asked reminds me of that. That was a period where people thought that perhaps this country needed everybody on board to save the country. Of course, it was rejected. I think seriously that the proposal by the former president and the person you mentioned, Felix, they are very important proposals in my view. But see, that proposal will have to be based on some reforms of the Constitution. If you are saying that when you are elected into government, bring some of the opposition in, that's not going to work.
Not necessarily the opposition. I mean, we have the CSOs and all that who are good in their field, the various fields that they,
but you don't
they work
know
on.
whether or not the president consults private individuals privately. The president, I'm sure, in his own ways, may have direct consultations with people that you and I don't know in civil society. So that one goes on with all presidents. I'm very much aware. When I was at CDD, President Kufuor was in power, there was at times there was a private conversation when something really needed to be sorted out for him, you know, in terms of policy. So I believe all presidents have friends in civil society and elsewhere who can be consulted. So those informal channels are there for any president. But we are talking about seriously bringing everybody on board, because we all consider, and seriously I believe that no one party can fix the problems we have. We have seen the performance of the two big parties. We have seen. You start something, at most 8 years, you are gone. The person who comes in, the next government, reverses so many things, stalls projects that you have initiated. So we are damaging ourselves by the system that we have created. So if the former president, Mahama, is talking about inclusiveness, then we have to look beyond just consulting experts. Because most of the issues we have, even the economic issues, are often compounded by the political issues.
But why does it seem difficult to have such things to be done, like bringing on board opposition parties?
Let me tell you a
help
story.
in dialogue and
Let me
decision
tell you a
making.
story I'm personally familiar with. When President Kufuor assumed power, one of the proposals he picked was to have a breakfast meeting with the opposition parties. Because we have examined some issues, we thought that it was important for smooth governance to have regular consultations. During his first year, he invited the minority leader at the time, who happens to be the Speaker of Parliament today, the Right Honorable Bagbin. Bagbin went to the castle for a breakfast, and a few others, of course, from the opposition. He came out and he was savagely attacked by his own party that he has betrayed the NDC.
Why? Because he sat with the president at the time.
Because he has gone to the other side. Because these two parties tend to look at each other as an enemy. And this story I'm saying is not published, but I know personally.
That is exclusive to us.
He came out and said that he was tricked by the president for the breakfast. He didn't know he was going for discussions.
What year are we talking about? Which year are we talking about?
2001, the latter part of 2001. And this also is not an isolated case. I know that incidents where one NDC member, a senior person, a good friend of mine, passing by the former president's house, decided to stop in to say hello. Again, the news came out, and he was savaged by the founder of the party at the time and some party members. So I guess I'm saying that I don't know what is between the two sides, but it seems like we have to find a way. In fact, that's why, in my view, the best way to go is to have unity government if possible. But this constitution does not allow that. And I'm not saying that's the way we should go, because there could be other platforms we can create.
Like
where the
which
two
platforms?
Sides, you can easily create a platform where the two sides can meet and sort out things in a very amicable way. In Parliament, there's too much showboating. You know what that means. People showboat because they want to impress their constituencies or their audience. So that's not where serious discussions really take place. Over there, what takes place is politics. But outside there, or rather I should say, there should be another forum where serious-minded individuals from all sides can meet and discuss the issues of the country. That would be a way to forge some kind of consensus so that we can agree on certain policies. Just a few days ago, former ambassador was interviewed in the Graphic, and I read it, that we need to have a national plan. Of course, the NDPC is there. They did one under the Mahama regime, a 40-year plan. I saw it, beautifully done. The new government came in and said, we're not going to work with it. Okay? So, and I believe if government changes, I'm sure the next government, if it's not the same party, they are also going to introduce some new interventions. So I guess there's a need for a national plan that all the parties will have to base their manifestos on. But if each party is coming with their own appreciation and therefore approaches to development, we're going to have what we see as the zigzag way of development. At times it's not even zigzagging, at times it's just drawing back. And that's what we've been experiencing in this republic. So there's a serious need for national discussions on how we can forge a common platform of development where all of us can buy into and move forward.
This wouldn't be the first time hearing somebody speak of a national plan. Like you said, the 40-year plan that has been abandoned, so to say, by the current government and all that. How do we constitutionally bind such a thing? So we know that when it comes to power, you only have to work with a plan that has been suggested and agreed upon constitutionally with the backing with the Constitution. How do we do that?
That's exactly why I said earlier that we need to have a constitutional reform. The present Constitution has served us, at least for 30 years, we've had a stable governance in the country. But after 30 years, we also know that there are so many defects in the Constitution. What you just said cannot be done outside the Constitution, because every government elected is mandated by the people to pursue its agenda as presented in the manifesto, not in the National Development Plan. Okay? So at times you even question the relevance of that NDPC if what they do not become the national plan. All right. So I think constitutional reform can therefore restructure how we govern ourselves and can redefine the powers of the executive, seriously tackle the issue of decentralization, because for me that's one of the downsides of our governance, that governance occurs only when the national government decides there should be development. We don't need that. I think we should empower the districts to become the vehicles of change in the various localities rather than being the central government in Accra. We need to really reactivate the district assemblies. We think we have, but we don't. What we have achieved is what we call administrative decentralization. We have created these districts, they are functional administratively, but we don't have real political decentralization. We don't have even fiscal decentralization. In other words, what budget do they operate with? It comes from the local government ministry. That's from the center. The president chooses or appoints the MMDCs. Look at the cities we have in this country. They are almost, besides Accra, all the other cities are dying because city mayors or whatever title they have no powers to initiate anything. They have to refer to Minister of Local Government. In other countries, cities are able to raise their own revenue through local taxation structures to initiate development. So that basic things like roads in the cities, not water, but roads and other things can be provided by the people themselves, not for a minister in Accra to determine where a school is located in my village.
All right. I'll come back to you. I'm still here with Professor AGYEMANG-DUAH, BAFFOUR AGYEMANG-DUAH, who is a UN's former senior governance advisor. And we are talking about governance and the structure of Ghana's economy. Stay with us. It's still 1-1 here. All right, welcome back. You're still watching 1-on-1 with me, Bright Nanakwesi Ameni, and my guest on the show today is Professor BAFFOUR AGYEMANG-DUAH, a former senior governance advisor to the United Nations. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Let's now talk about election and politics here in Ghana. The call by the Electoral Commission to have Ghanaians use the National Identification Card as a sole document for elections in our next elections. What do you make of this?
It's not a bad call, because all of us would like to see that happening. In other words, we have had a lot of challenges with voter registration over the years. So now, through technology, if a Ghana card is going to solve that problem, I think we should all applaud that. And I don't know anybody who is opposed to having the Ghana card as a sole identification, for Ghanaian voters. I think that the problem I hear, which I tend to sympathize with, but it seems like it's resolved, is whether the time that we have before the next elections, the NIA will be able to
Capture
everybody eligible. That has been the key question. But listening to the NIA, it seems to me that they are going to be able to do that, because beginning 3 days ago, last Monday, we understand that all the 275 offices in the districts of the NIA are functional, together with the 16 regional offices. So if that is true, then means everywhere in Ghana, people have the opportunity to go and get their card. Now, if the NIA again can ensure that those who register do get their card, but not like before when there was a shortage of cars and therefore you have to go and come back. If all those teething issues have been solved and the cars can be produced in time, then certainly I don't think anybody should have a problem with it, because the NIA will help us to avoid many of the problems that we had. And then the beauty of this is that, as they've said, a time is going to come soon where newly born babies will be assigned NIA cards. So you have a card. Once you reach the age of 18, if the Constitution still prescribes 18 as the age of voting, you go to an EC office anywhere, show your card, and you are fully registered. That is where the concept of continuous registration really becomes true. So there's nothing wrong with the card. We need to really support it. So the concerns raised by those who are a little bit not happy with it is simply they are not sure the cards will be accessible to all. So if the NIA is coordinating with the EC and there's an assurance that everybody qualified will be able to gain a card, and also what the EC is saying is those who had their cards when they were 15, you just take your card to any EC office and what? And register. That is part of continuous registration is started. So I don't see any problem with that. So as I'm saying, what should be addressed for those who have the concern is whether everybody will have access to that.
The card.
So once the NIA assures us, then it's up to the political parties, because they are all over the country. Let the people monitor, ensure that in fact it's true that in Bimbela, I can go to the NIA and get my card. In Narerugu, in Wasa, wherever it is, we can go and once that is clear, I don't think anybody should raise any opposition to this, because for me, the card, the Ghana card, ultimately will solve much of the problems that we have. And also, mind you see the savings we are going to make. Every year we register. You know how much it costs this nation? Millions of dollars. The election itself, multi-millions of dollars. Now the NIA is not going to do that. And people are not going to queue up. And parties are not going to bus people from everywhere just to go and register. Because you have a card, there will be no need for queuing. You see, so it's a wonderful thing that I think we are going to see. But I know that the beginning of everything has some teething problems and concerns and all. So let the EC and the NIA embark on a vigorous public education for the people to understand that this is what we're doing, and we think there will be no problem. Once people are well educated, I think this issue will die off. It will die off.
Now that we are talking about Ghana's digitalizing almost everything, let's not talk about SIM card registration. I mean, being led by the Minister for Communications, Madam Masla also. I mean, there have been concerns about deadlines and all that. Earlier, before we went for the break, when we were on the break, we were talking about deadline and how some people believe there shouldn't be any deadline at all. It should be left open. So anytime that you have the chance to have it registered or re-registered, just walk into any department to have it done. You are smiling.
Yeah. First of all, you know, Ghanaians, for some reasons, we are strange in many ways. NIA card, when it started, was free, you know that.
Yeah.
You could just go, and they announced all over the country, go and get the card, is free. Some people chose not to have it. And those people have waited till the last minute to go and queue up. And then when we queue up, then we complain. That's a typical Ghanaian approach to things. The SIM card too, it wasn't yesterday that we were told to go and register. Years back, you know.
So September 30 will be exactly a year since the initiative
and a whole year,
was given birth to.
A whole year. And any office of MTN or any of the telecoms, you can go and do that. And yet people waited to the deadline. Now, if you say, well, there should be no deadline, fine. But the simple fact is that if you have not done it, you haven't reconciled your SIM card with your NIA, it means that you are going to lose certain services by the telcos. So for me, if there's no deadline, it's fine. But then those who have not registered will themselves run because they will be closed off to certain services that they could get from the telcos. So for me, it's a simple thing. It's a straightforward thing.
What really is the importance for us to have our cards registered in the first place?
You see, you know the time, there was a time you arrived at the Kotoke airport and these telcos company will come and dish it out free.
Yeah, for free.
For free. I experienced it many times. For free. It was very easy anywhere in the world. But you see, fraudsters, criminals took advantage of that and started using the SIM card for all kinds of nefarious activities. Swindling, scamming, all kinds of things. That's why not only in Ghana, other countries have forced their people to register it so that they can monitor. When a crime is committed, you can use the card to trace the source of the crime. So in a way, it's for our own protection. Again, I know getting all this information also leads to building up a data. And you know what data can be. But why should we be afraid? We are all working on this earth as zombies now because the big satellites are watching us every day. Information is now free anywhere. The point I'm making is that the need for the registration is to check fraud and other kinds of illegal activities that people started using the cards for. So I think it's necessary for our own protection.
And so if you're out there still contemplating at least an excuse or let's say an explanation as to why you have to go get your SIM card registered.
Yes.
Yeah. Let's now talk about this is quite an interesting one I want us to look at, the corruption in the country. I mean, just a few days ago, we had a report that puts the police personnel first when it comes to the most corrupted institutions in the country, followed by the presidency. How do you react to this? Let's begin with the police service.
Well, it's not a surprise to me. When I worked at CDD, I was familiar with Afrobarometer. And since the Afrobarometer started back in 1998, it's always putting the police on top of things. The police and the judiciary, basically our justice system. And the interesting thing is that these are institutions that are accessed by almost all Ghanaians, whether you're in the village or you're in the urban area. There are police officers. You encounter the law everywhere you are. In the small places, there are magistrates. So people do interact very much with the police and the justice system generally. That's why when you conduct these reports, this research, you tend to get a lot of response to these things. So it's not strange to me that the latest Afrobarometer is also indicating that the police is ranked very high, and the judiciary, of course, this time the presidency is number 3, you see. But you see, we are concerned about corruption. But the truth is that corruption is endemic in our society. Corruption is systemic in our society. Every system you examine in this country, you are going to find corruption eating deep into its fabric. Look, you want to have an admission for your kid in school, we know stories of where headmasters and headmistresses extract money to do that. You go to the civil servants, civil service, go to public offices. At times, if you don't pay money, your file may be lost for weeks, if not months, or not at all. You see? So, it is important we tackle corruption, but I think if we are serious, first, leadership should demonstrate commitment by showing examples. That is to say, when big people are caught, they should be publicly dealt with to serve as a deterrence for others. That's one level.
How do you get these supposed big people?
That is where people get upset when no action is taken, when corruption of big people are reported. In other words, one reason why people are even tagging the presidency as being corrupt is simply because allegedly some corrupt cases have been reported, but no action taken.
Has been taken.
You see, so if you do that, then the public perception will continue as if you are condoning the act. So if you're a leader and there's a reported case of corruption, it's important for you to demonstrate to the public that is something you do not tolerate.
The report came out days ago. By now, what were you expecting to happen?
If a report comes in, and you know, President has access to information better than you and I, because the intelligence agencies in this country do report to the President on a daily basis. So if a big public official is known to be corrupt in Tamale or Sunyani or anywhere, it comes. That's why the President has security advisors all around him. And I'm sure there's what you call daily briefings. So if your intelligence is reporting that BAFFOUR got some $4 million CDs or whatever, and it's been misused and all that, a strong leader committed to corruption will quickly call BAFFOUR.
Are we seeing that?
No, I haven't seen that. I know that this president has referred certain cases to the police or to some other anti-corruption offices, but in the end, we are told that there was investigation, nothing was found. It could be true because, you see, allegations are not really, they could be mere allegations. But when the reports are consistent,
and nothing gets to be done about it.
Consistently, nothing is done about it, then it tends to reinforce the perception. After all, you see, all the reports, corruption index and all that, they are all based on perception. What changes the perception is the demonstrable action by leadership. If the public sees that you took action, whether the person was guilty or not, action was taken. And then the attitude of the leadership should show the people that, in fact, you are concerned. You are genuinely concerned about the issue. But not to treat it as if it's right, you know, or is your enemies who are saying you are corrupt, is your opposition who are saying you are corrupt. If you pick that attitude, then you reinforce the public perception that you yourself, you are part of it, you are condoning it. And I think that has been the biggest problem for this president. Not that he himself is involved, but I think his attitude towards it has not been very helpful in terms of diffusing the public perception that's so, huge out there.
Let's talk about the office of the Special Prosecutor. Is it making headways?
Well, I know lately there was a case involving one member of the Council of State, $1.47 million or so, tax evasion or something. That is asking the lady to refund. Interesting first step.
You don't look too satisfied with that. with how you are talking about it. You don't look satisfied.
Oh, well, you know, he said there are about 30 cases on his desk when he took the office, so we are waiting for the big cases. 1.4 million retrieval, it's not too bad, but it's nothing. It's a pittance. I think there are bigger issues, bigger corruption cases, alleged. But even those alleged, let us know that they were mere allegations because you did a thorough investigation and disprove those who are alleged. But we are yet to see that.
We've also,
I want to see also prosecutions.
We've also heard, like you were saying, we've also heard statements that says the OSPs is finding it difficult to bite. If you say you really want to see people account for what they've done, big names like you're calling for, what really do you want to see? Like I said, some of the cases have been reported, but then nothing has been done about it. And yet we are hearing that over 1 million Ghana cedi has been retrieved and all that from a case. Is that not him at least?
Oh yeah, he's done well. I think he's making, that's the first big step. He's been applauded in some quarters, but I'm saying that we need to see more than that. This was an easy case. Member of Council of State, not a political, you know, so it's a good first step, but I think we need to see more than that for us to believe that it is really working. I applaud him for taking this step. It's an important first step. But as I keep saying, it's just a drop in the ocean.
We are going to end the conversation in a few minutes. But I want to find out, before we go, tell me, in this MPP-led administration we have right now, the second term of the MPP, what really do you want to see and see the economy turn around? What really should they be doing?
Well, you see, I think every politician, every leader, president would like his party to continue in office after he's gone. And I believe President Nana Akufo-Addo thinks the same.
And he broke the 8.
Pardon? Yes, exactly. I think he believes it. It will be in his own interest to have his party staying in power. That's why it's more important, therefore, for him to demonstrate over the coming 2 years or so to the people that, in fact, there's a turn in terms of his approach to governance. You know, this issue of reshuffle that he brushed it aside, a lot of people are not happy about that. Clearly, I mean, you get reactions everywhere, even in his own party. When he said that people want jobs, that's why they are calling. That one, I think, was directed to his own party. Because if there's a vacancy in his government, he's not going to pick an NDC man or somebody else who is not in his party. So certainly it is his own party people who may be looking for.
Is that not a conversation for politicizing almost every single thing?
So all I'm saying is that he should take these public things seriously because his own party people are saying the same stuff, you know. So I think that it's not really over. He has an opportunity to change the minds of people by demonstrating a renewed energy and a renewed effort to really get things done. The economy, I believe that if the oil price keeps going down as we have witnessed over the past few weeks, now it's down to 96 or so from as high as 120, maybe that will also help ease the financial crunch that we have, okay? But more importantly, I think we need to begin seriously to think about how we can develop self-sufficiency in some basic items that we keep importing.
Which of these items are you talking about? A quick one.
Food. We don't have to be importing certain foods in this country. We don't have to be importing dead chicken, frozen chicken of 6 months on the high seas. We can empower our local poultry industry to give us that. So many things. I can sit here and recount many things.
And talking about foods, I read somewhere that the arable land here in Ghana is about 20%, but we always know about 50% of it.
Let's go back to the 70s. A champion, General Champion, Operation Feed Yourself, was able to export rice from this country to Burkina, Mali, and other places. 1974, 75. Go to the statistics. You see the record. We've done it before. We should be able to feed ourselves rice, onion. Now we are importing onion from Chad. Onions. And we're happy about that. If you do that, you cannot preserve your currency. Always you are changing your currency to dollars to pay, and then the cedi begins to, slide down. So I'm saying that there's a real need for a national policy for self-sufficiency in certain basic things that we import. Self-reliance will be the theme. That's why when President Akufo-Addo announced the Ghana Beyond Aid, personally I was excited.
Has it failed?
I don't know where it is, but I think approaches like the 1D, 1F are all long-term solutions to that, because it's not something you can achieve overnight. It's not something you can achieve in 8 years as president. But if that becomes our national policy, then any subsequent government will not stall it, but rather add to it and expand it. If you do that, then the industrial base of this country can begin to grow. So we can stop importing chicken and what have you. These are the things we need.
And hasn't our return to the IMF stained our move to go beyond aid as a country?
Yeah, because we couldn't put our acts together. You see, the 17th time going to the IMF, that's another discussion we can have, but certainly it's a demonstration that we could not put our house in order. Whatever the IMF is going to tell us will be everything that we already know. Fiscal discipline. Who doesn't know that? Stop spending in certain areas. Stop spending on unproductive sectors. Everybody knows
Unproductive
that.
sectors.
Unproductive sectors. I mean, if you spend money on something that doesn't bring you
Returns.
It's like Band-Aid programs under Muhammad. There was youth for this, youth for highway, youth for traffic. Now we have NAPCO. Look, we have to invest in something that gives us return in terms of wealth creation. If you don't create enough wealth, you cannot share nothing. So if you keep spending on things that are not productive, you end up getting nothing. Then you go and borrow to sustain what you have.
Thank you so much, sir. Professor BAFFOUR AGYEMANG-DUAH is a former UN Senior Governance Advisor, and he joined me here on 101. I am Bryce, and thank you so much for watching. See you some other time. Bye.